Hey, everybody, it's Sam Rodriguez and Conor Shepard. Hope you guys are doing good. Welcome to episode 11 of Money and Stuff. Conor, man, how you doing today?
Doing good, Sam. You want the weather update, the sports update?
Hey, yeah, either like, what do you have to tell me about the weather? What do you have to tell me about your dog? I don't,
Hey,
I don't think
go-
we've talked about sports yet, but you know,
hey, we let's talk sports. I mean, man, this last weekend, college football weekend,
hey,
some crazy games.
yeah, I saw your, we talked about Penn State, versus Iowa beforehand, and I saw Penn State lose. And I'm going to tell you, I still don't think that Iowa's a very good football team. So I don't know what that says about Penn State.
I agree with you, and I just I really do think if our quarterback hadn't gotten injured, we would have had that in the bag. It seemed like a pretty one-sided first half, but it's the way the game goes.
All right, man. All right. Whatever makes you feel better. All right. Let's talk about something people actually care about when
Yeah,
they
there you
listen
go.
to us.
Yeah, because nobody cares about football.
That was a little bit of stuff. Whatever.
There
You'll get more stuff later. Some stuff you actually want to hear.
you go. So what are we
Well,
talking about?
yeah. So the last two episodes have been specifically about Roth IRAs, right? We had an episode where we talked about who should be thinking about a Roth IRA and why you should have a Roth IRA. And last episode, we talked about Roth IRA conversions. And, it's in the news. We have clients asking us more and more about it. So let's give the people what they want. Let's keep talking about Roths.
Keep the ball rolling.
Yeah. So today I want to talk about something called the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA.
Sounds intimidating.
Sounds intimidating. Like, yeah, I don't like the name. I mean, it's what it is. I don't know who came up with that name, but it's caught on, and that's what people use. And it is in the news a little bit right now because some of the tax plans that are out there right now include closing some loopholes that higher income earning individuals have to be able to put money into things like Roth IRAs. So it's possible that the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA strategy may not be a strategy for that much longer. But I think it is important to understand how it works, especially if it's something that you can do before the year ends. And if it does not get canceled out, then it's definitely something you need to be aware of to take advantage of. So,
Okay.
so I'm just going to jump into what it is.
Dive on in.
It's a Mega Backdoor Roth IRA. What else do I have to say?
Yeah, right. All right. That was the episode, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Easy. It's all in the title. All right. So, we established a few episodes ago that higher income earning individuals are not allowed to contribute to a Roth IRA. But, we talked about in the last episode how high income earning individuals can do a backdoor Roth IRA by, contributing to an IRA and then immediately converting it into a Roth IRA. Well, what you can do with a Mega Backdoor Roth IRA is you basically can super fund a Roth IRA using the backdoor strategy. But what I will say is not everybody can do this, right? Because it has to be done through your 401k provider.
Okay.
So you may or may not already know in your 401k, you are limited as to how much you're allowed to contribute on either a pre-tax or if you have a Roth IRA option inside of your 401k to the Roth portion of your 401k. And the total that you can contribute between the two of those, whether you're doing all in one or the other or combined together, the maximum amount you can contribute per year is $19,500. You are 50 or older, you have what's called a catch-up provision, which allows you to put an additional $6,500 to make your total contribution possibility $26,000. Right. So that's your limit. 19.5 or 26,000. The catch-up contribution is for people that are age 50 and older, if I didn't say that a second ago. I'm having one of those mornings where I can't remember what I said like 30 seconds ago. So I apologize if I repeat myself a lot this time. So here's how the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA works. I need a simpler name. Saying that every time is exhausting.
It really, I wasn't kidding when I said it sounds intimidating. Like it
Even
is
just trying to, like, I was like, maybe I call it an MBDRI. Yeah, I was like, no, that's still way too much. Either way, the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA, here's how it works. What is actually allowed to be contributed to your 401k is as much as $58,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we all know the 19.5 limit or the 26,000 limit, but that $58,000 limit has some, you really have to know what all is included to be able to reach that. The way that $58,000 number works is it is a combination of what you contribute to either the traditional 401k or the Roth 401k, and what your employer puts into the plan for you. So most of the time that's going to be the match or the profit sharing, right? Yeah. And then you take, okay, between those two things, how much room do we have? So let's say you put in 26,000 and your employer puts in 6,000. So that's a total of 32. Well, 32 subtracted from 58 is 26. So you have 26,000 that you can still contribute, but you have to contribute it in a very specific way.
Okay.
And what you have to check with your 401k is if they allow something called non-Roth after-tax contributions. So non-Roth after-tax contributions, basically like any other non-qualified brokerage account that you might invest in. You put your money in, because it's not in a tax qualified account, you will be taxed on your gains, right? And again, you've got to check with your 401k provider to see if that is even an option. If that's not an option, then you can't do the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA strategy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So it sounds like that, like a major factor that you have to account for is that what do you call it? The
whether they have the non-Roth,
whether they offer it, yeah.
Yeah, whether or not that's whether or not that's an option. Yeah, that is a major hurdle, because if it's not an option, everything stops down.
Dead in the water.
Yeah. So if that's an option, great. And then what you're allowed to do is to take those non-Roth after-tax contributions that you've made and actually convert them to a Roth IRA. So in this example that we talked about, if you have the ability to put that extra 26,000 in there, you've just essentially made a $26,000 Roth IRA contribution. So again, you have to go in and you have to figure out, okay, how much room do I have, right? So number one, you got to figure out, do they allow non-Roth after-tax contributions? Second is then you got to determine, well, how much did I already contribute to either traditional 401k or Roth 401k? How much did my employer contribute? And what do I have left between those contributions and the $58,000 number? Now that $58,000 number actually can be higher for those that are 50 and older. That number also increases by 6,500. So that limit is 64.5. Okay. But you use that to determine what that amount is that you can actually use the Mega Backdoor Roth IRA strategy. So that's it. That's exactly, it's not that complicated. It can be a little complicated to execute. And know that if you are making these contributions on a regular basis, like out of every paycheck, and you decide, you got to determine, well, when are you going to do these conversions? Are you going to convert every time you make a contribution? Or is it better to let them build up all throughout the year and then convert one time at the end of the year, which would be much, much easier? The thing you do have to be cautious of is the money that you have been putting into the after-tax non-Roth contribution. Anything that you contributed when you convert it is not going to be taxable. Mm-hmm. But if you convert any of the growth, that is going to be taxable.
Okay.
Right. But most plans will allow you to take that growth and roll it into the traditional part of the 401k and let it grow tax deferred. So that's how it works, right? It's not that complicated. It can be complicated to execute. I'd advise anybody who is thinking about doing it, make sure when you talk with your 401k provider that they understand what it is that you're trying to do. If you have an advisor, I highly, highly advise you to work with your advisor through every step of the process to make sure it gets executed correctly. But that's it in a nutshell. It's like I said, not that complicated.
Yeah.
It's just you have that ability. I will say not that many 401ks allow you to have the non-Roth after-tax contribution. What I will challenge you to do, and what I've had some of our clients do that maybe had a direct line to a CMO or a CFO or a CEO, is to actually go talk to them and say, hey, why don't we have this inside of our 401k? And I've actually gotten on the phone and explained to the higher ups how it worked and how it would actually benefit them, right? Mm-hmm. It's like nothing motivates the C-suite level executives to do something that's going to help you, like doing something that not only helps you, but helps them as well.
Yeah.
Right. Suddenly
Absolutely.
The wheels start moving a lot faster when they realize how it can help them.
It's so crazy how that always seems to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so we talked about what it is. My question really at this point would be, why would somebody, what sort of situations would people have to be in, or what is going to motivate somebody to want to do this? Why would somebody do it?
I feel like
somebody do a
I feel like
backdoor?
You're not believing me. That it's beneficial. Are you questioning?
Just give me your money. I promise.
Yeah,
I'll handle it.
I promise this is good for you. No, that's a good question. You may be listening to this and thinking, oh, okay, sounds like it's a little bit of a hassle to figure out. Why would I want to go through that hassle?
Yeah, like it sounds like a backdoor with even more extra steps.
Yeah. So when it comes to your investments, we always hear about diversification, right? Make sure you're diversified with your investments. What I think isn't talked about often enough is tax diversification. And I'm sure we'll do an episode at some point about the benefit of tax diversification. And what I mean by tax diversification is when you start turning all of this money that you've saved into income, how is it going to be taxed? Right? Is it going to be taxed fully as income? Is it going to be taxed as capital gains? Will it be tax-free? Knowing all of these things is important. And if you can put yourself in a position to have some choice as to how, I should say, position of choice as to where you pull that money from, or in what proportions you pull that money from these different tax diversified accounts, you can control your taxes, or I shouldn't say control your taxes. You have much more control over your taxes than if you don't have the choice of where to pull your money from. So for example, let's say that, you're a 65-year-old married couple, you've got $40,000 a year coming to you in Social Security, and you withdraw $100,000 a year from your IRA or your traditional IRA, right? What you're going to end up paying in taxes is just a little under $15,000. That's not terrible, right? Like I mean, that's got you in the 22% tax bracket, but your effective rate is about 10.6,
Mhm.
right? Which you might look at that and go, yeah, I'll pay a little over 10% in taxes. That's not that big of a deal. But if you can create some tax diversification, and let's say that you still have that $40,000 in Social Security income, and when it comes to the 100,000 that you're pulling from your IRAs, if 50,000 of it comes from a traditional IRA and 50,000 of it comes from a Roth IRA, instead of paying a little under 15,000 in taxes, you're going to pay about 5,500 in taxes.
Mm.
You save almost $10,000 a
Yeah.
year in taxes.
Yeah, you're paying a third of it.
Yeah. And it's, because it's not just that, well, obviously only half that money is taxable. Yes, that's true. But there are some other, what I call like waterfall effects that happen. So there's, especially when you have Social Security, there's something called your provisional income, and your provisional income determines how much of your Social Security is actually taxable. And the lower you can make that provisional income, the less of your Social Security is going to be taxed. And what's not included in provisional income? Withdrawals from Roth IRAs, right? So in that scenario, you're less of your, not only do you have less money coming from a taxable traditional IRA, but now also less of your Social Security is taxable. So it always has some other effects that come along to it that make the tax benefits even greater.
Yeah.
And you could be thinking to yourself right now, oh, I don't have enough time left to put half of my money, into Roth. Well, even if you can just do 25%,
Yeah.
right? And you pull 75% of that money from your 401k or your traditional 401k or IRA and 25% from the Roth, it still lowers it to just a little over 9,000 a year in taxes. So we go from 15 to a little over 9, right? Like that's still a pretty good savings in terms of taxes. So what that allows you to do is one of two things. Either you have extra money to live on, right? Or that money actually doesn't have to get pulled out and it gets to stay in your accounts to continue to work for you and have your money last longer, right? Or if you're not going to spend it, have it pass on to your heirs. Either way, taxes are an expense. And when you think about your retirement, you're always thinking about the income you have coming in versus the expenses you have going out. And we need to think of taxes as an expense.
Yeah.
And so you think about your electricity bill, right? If you can get all the same electricity at a lower price, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
So the same thing here, if you can get the same income you need, but pay less taxes on it, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
So that's what strategies like a Roth IRA, a backdoor Roth IRA, or a mega backdoor Roth IRA give you, is they give you the ability to have more control over your taxes when you retire.
Yeah. Okay.
Easy enough.
Easy enough. We'll have to do I'm sure at some point we'll have to do a multi-part series on taxes.
Yeah, right. And yes, I was about to really get into it, but then we'd end up here a lot longer. So I'm just going to agree with you and say, yes, we probably should talk about taxes in more detail and your ability to control taxes and understand taxes in retirement, and having a real strategy about taxes in retirement. Like I said, taxes are an expense.
Yeah.
You got to account for them. And if you can figure out how to lower them, even better.
Yeah. And I think that's a good like overview phrase for that is, viewing taxes as an expense. Because when you said that, I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, after you said that, it makes total sense. And it's like a well, duh moment. But prior to you just saying that, I don't know how often I actually would look at taxes as an expense. I guess it for some reason it had been differentiated in my head.
Yeah, I think people think we don't think of taxes, or we don't think of anything really as an expense when there's nothing we can do about it,
Yeah.
right? It's like, it's just what it is, you know. It's like they're gonna take it. I can't do anything about it, so I don't think about it. But when it's something that we can actually control, more thought can go into it, and we think we can more categorize it into that expense. It's like you can control how much you spend at the grocery store. You can control, maybe you can control how much gas you use or how much you spend going out to eat. You can't get it for free. You can't show up at a restaurant. I mean, I guess you can, right? You might suffer some consequences, but you can't show up at a restaurant and pay nothing, right? So I'm not saying that, right? You don't have total control, but you can control by limiting certain things, right?
Being
And it's the same thing with taxes. It's all about choice. If I go back to that restaurant example, you can go out and find something to eat, but you also can choose where you eat or what you eat while you're there, right? It's all about putting yourself in a position of choice. You live in a town where there's 2 restaurants, you don't have a lot of choice, but if you really like going out to eat, you should probably live in a town where they have dozens of restaurants. So that way you always have a choice of what you have.
Yeah.
And in this case, creating tax diversification puts you in that position of choice. So that way, when it comes time to creating your income in retirement, you can every year strategize as to how you're going to pull your money out. So that way you can keep your taxes low. And like I said, either save more of your money or just live on more because you're not paying it to taxes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We solved that problem.
Once again.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Guys, we love helping you out, and we know it goes miles. So.
All right. Maybe we'll edit that out, Connor. I don't know, man. You tried. All right, guys. We really appreciate you listening. For those of you who send us questions, keep sending them. I know we've been on this thing on Roth IRAs for several episodes now, but we're definitely still listening. We're kind of putting them in the bank for things to talk about in the future. We definitely welcome it. And for those of you who are listening to us on a regular basis, we really appreciate it. Again, any questions, feel free to send them my way, S. Rodriguez at Foundation Wealth Partners, and we'll get to it at some point. We'll address it. All right. Connor, I'll see you later, man.
Sounds good.
Everybody else, we'll talk to you soon.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advice offered through Foundation Wealth Partners, a DBA of Advisor Resource Council, a registered investment advisor. Foundation Wealth Partners and Advisor Resource Council are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax and legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Qualified withdrawals of earnings from a Roth IRA account are tax-free. Withdrawals of earnings prior to age 59 and a half or prior to the account being opened for 5 years, whichever is later, may result in a 10% IRS penalty tax. Limitations and restrictions may apply.